Hello, very good morning. Welcome to Breakfast with Dan Walker and Louise Minchin.
It is 8 o'clock and these are our headlines this morning. What next for Brexit? The Prime Minister will set out her latest plans to Parliament, but will it be enough to break the deadlock?
Theresa May returns here this afternoon to address MPs, and Plan B, it appears, revolves around trying to cajole Conservative and DUP MPs into backing her eventually.
We've also been casting our eyes skywards to spot the super blood wolf moon.
And China's economy is growing at its slowest rate for nearly 30 years, a concern for exporters like Jaguar Land Rover, who've seen sales fall there.
Judd trumps Ronnie O'Sullivan at the Masters snooker, but nothing trumps.
Frosty start to the day. Some of us seeing some cloud, but that cloud will thin and we'll see hazy sunshine develop. However, a weather front coming in from the west is going to introduce some rain, squally winds and some hill snow. I'll have more in 15 minutes.
Good morning to you. Just gone 8 o'clock. It's Monday, the 21st of January. Theresa May will today outline her next steps as she tries to find a way to break the Brexit deadlock. She'll make a statement to MPs after talks with her cabinet yesterday.
Yes, it's thought the Prime Minister will try to find a solution to the controversial Irish backstop, an insurance policy designed to avoid the return of checkpoints on the border in Ireland.
Let's speak to our rather chilly political correspondent, Chris Mason, who's outside Westminster for us this morning. Morning to you, Chris.
Morning.
So it appears that the Prime Minister will not be reaching across the Commons for this one.
Quite. So it looks like that the idea of trying to persuade those on the other side of the House, Labour and other opposition parties to back some sort of deal has run into the sand. Why? Well, the hints have been clear, haven't they, for the last couple of days. Any attempt to cajole Jeremy Corbyn in the direction of Downing Street or to pick up the telephone have not exactly been well received, and there are those Conservatives who've been saying to the Prime Minister anyway, look, you wouldn't really be able to rely on them, and the danger is it would shred the Conservative Party to an even greater extent than it has already been shredded. So instead, the focus is on persuading her own side, or at least notionally her own side, given how many voted against her last week, and the DUP into backing the deal eventually. And as you were saying there, the idea is to try and find reassuring words about this whole issue of the backstop, the insurance policy for keeping the Irish border open. The thing is, from the government's perspective, they've been trying to do this for ages and ages, and the answer from Brussels has been a big fat no. And over the weekend, Ireland was staying exactly the same. It was going to stick with the withdrawal agreement as it's currently written.
Something else I want to ask you about this morning as well, Chris, is the sort of attempt by some MPs to try and rule out a no-deal Brexit. What's happening with those amendments?
Yeah, so what we've got today, we've got the Prime Minister popping up in the Commons at around about 3:30 or shortly after, and that will give MPs an opportunity to table what are known as amendments. In other words, to try and set out their own vision for how Brexit should or shouldn't happen, depending on their instincts. Now, there are some who would like to see another referendum. There are some who would like to see a closer relationship with the European Union after Brexit than the one the government is currently proposing. There are others who want to ensure that under any circumstances there isn't a no-deal Brexit. In other words, leaving the European Union at the end of March with no overarching withdrawal agreement. So we're going to see lots of jockeying amongst MPs, setting out their arguments, trying to seize this moment, given that the government quite clearly is pretty weak. The big challenge, though, for all of them is, can any of them assemble a majority to endorse anything? As things stand, that really doesn't look easy, and so we could be back where we are right now, which is deadlock.
Thank you, Chris. I'm very much enjoying your chunky gloves today, and the scarf, and the jumper.
Oh, thank you.
I've been told you've got a rather impressive hat as well. Can we see that?
Here we go.
Oh.
Here we go. There you go. Oozes practicality, and as I'm sure you agree, style as well.
I was going to say, you are a style icon.
Touch of the Harry Potters there. Very impressive.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Chris. Oh, excellent.
Oh, and the placard holder just got there right at the end. A little too late.
Oh, so in other news, the government will today publish what it calls a landmark domestic abuse bill, which it says will strengthen penalties for perpetrators and better protect victims. It means for the first time abusers will be banned from cross-examining their victims in the family court. The long-awaited legislation has been largely welcomed by campaign groups.
Israel's military say they've started hitting Iranian targets in Syria. They say operations against the elite units of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards provided no details, but overnight there were reports of strikes around the Syrian capital of Damascus. The media in Syria have said that their defences had repelled an Israeli aerial attack.
Police are continuing to question 4 men in connection with a car bomb attack in Londonderry on Saturday night. No one was hurt in the explosion. Officers say they believe a dissident Republican group, the New IRA, who want to see a unified Ireland, was responsible for that blast.
A man who was carrying a machete on board a train in Essex has been arrested. Police found the 15-inch blade after a stop and search on the Greater Anglian service between Colchester and Witham on Sunday night. A man from London has been arrested on suspicion of 2 offences and he remains in police custody.
6 suspected migrants are believed to have been picked up overnight by immigration officials on a boat. HM Coast Guard confirmed it had assisted with the operation off the Kent coast, but the Home Office have yet to confirm details. Border Force agents also launched a search for another boat, but nothing has been found so far.
Donald Trump has attacked Democrats for rejecting his proposals to end the longest government shutdown in US history.
The president had offered temporary relief for millions of migrants in return for funding for his wall along the Mexican border, but critics call the plans unacceptable and hostage-taking.
Let's run you through some of the details. The shutdown has now entered its 30th day. That beats the record of 1995 when government closed down for 21 days.
It is affecting everyday life for millions of Americans, but more so, of course, for the 800,000 government employees who are going without pay. Many have been forced to queue for food banks.
We knew that there were a lot of people that were impacted and in need. We were thinking maybe about 2,000 people at the max would come by when we opened up. We've already served yesterday well over 4,000. The line still wraps around the block here right now, and there's really no sign of it letting up. This shutdown is impacting a lot of people. Many of the folks that we're talking with have never done this before. I've never had to stand in line for a plate of food.
Thank you, everybody who have been sending in their beautiful pictures of the supermoon, which has been appearing in skies this morning, a total lunar eclipse.
This is how it looked a little bit earlier today. It has now ended officially. It happens when the Earth passes between the moon and the sun, and it turns a sort of nice shade of red or orange, depending on what time you see it. Scientists believe it's the last time we're going to see something quite like this until 2029.
It's a super blood moon. And earlier we heard from amateur astronomer Jill Palmer, who'd been up bright and early to see the eclipse.
I've been out here since 3 o'clock this morning. There's a whole band of about 15, 20 of us that came down with telescopes, and we saw the whole thing. It was spectacular. Just never seen anything like it in our lives. It's fantastic.
It's almost as good as Chris's hat, though, isn't it?
That is a very good hat, very Harry Potter as well. Well, lots of you taking your own pictures. Sean had a go at taking a picture of the moon on this way this morning. This could be the worst picture. Here it is.
It's an awful effort, though, isn't it?
Yep, tiny, tiny moon, but he did see it, unlike some of us here, so lucky Sean.
Fair dues. Thankfully, there have been a few better efforts sent in. This is from Jonathan Demery. Wow, look at that, from Llandudno in North Wales. That is gorgeous, isn't it?
Paul Burke sent us this from the Lake District, showing a nice deep red shade.
This is Martin Crowe in Burnham on Crouch in Essex. That is, again, not quite as red as the one we saw a few moments ago, but that's sort of nice shade of orange and quite tinged at the bottom as well.
And finally, I don't think this is actually the moon. This is Steve Green's effort from Brixham. We suspect he may have cheated and used, what, chorizo, is it? What do you think it is?
Yeah, I think that could, yeah. It's a nice effort, though. And if you would see it from a distance, you might think, oh, what a beautiful, moon you have.
Incredible thing to look at. But anyway, thank you very much indeed. And lucky all of you who've seen it. It's now over. It ended about 20 minutes or so ago, we reckon.
Yeah, just 10 years to wait for the next one. It's approaching 8:10. Thank you for being with us this morning. Louise Endan with you on Breakfast from the BBC. And millions of EU citizens who live and work in the UK will from today be asked to apply for a new legal status. If they don't, they might ultimately risk deportation. So how will this new system work?
Well, it's going to cost £65 for adults to register online for what's called settled status. It affects those who've lived here continuously for 5 years or more.
EU citizens who've been here for less than that can apply for pre-settled status until they're eligible for full settlement rights. The rules do not apply to people from Ireland.
Well, we have been to meet two families who've made their homes in Britain to get their reaction.
Our daughter Helena was born 19 weeks ago. That's been quite a change in our lives, but we're really enjoying it. My name is Janna Reumerman, and I've lived in the UK for 8 years.
EU citizens and their families will need to apply to the EU settlement scheme to continue living in the UK after 31 December 2020.
So what do I think about it? I'm not necessarily offended by it or upset by it. I think that one way or another people will have to register that they are EU nationals, as there's no longer free movement of people.
So I have to pay for you to stay here. Personally, I think I do feel that countries should be able to determine who comes in and who doesn't. And for that to happen, you need to register. And yeah, I'm not offended by this at all.
If I'm brutally honest, I hope Brexit will not happen and that we don't have to apply for a settled statement at all and just continue with our lives as they are.
My name is George Kontakos. I've been running the Olive Grove restaurant in Cambridge for the past 6 years, and I've been in this country for 16 years. At this moment, we've put all our plans on hold. We don't know what the future will be. We're just a little bit stressed to see what's going to happen with our settlement status.
My name is Francesca Bejac Kontaku. I was born in the United Kingdom, and I've been married to George for 10 years. I'm fortunate to be British and have been born here. George is not so fortunate, however, and doesn't hold a British citizenship because being a European is just good as. But now we're a little bit worried about what the future holds for us and holds for our family. So we need to think of some ideas, some art ideas.
What guarantees do we have that a future government might just scrap our settled status applications and make us illegal citizens in this country? It makes me feel scared and anxious and worried about my future, not just in England, but as a person in the world.
It's this insecurity that I feel from my country that is worrying me. Because I think that the country that I'm living in, if they don't want my husband here, then there's no place for me here. My husband is my family, my husband is my life, and I will follow him anywhere he goes. And if he's not welcomed in my country, then my country is no longer my country.
Well, some very interesting points made there. Joining us now from our London newsroom is chef and restaurateur Raymond Blanc, who's lived in the UK for 46 years, I think. Morning to you.
Good morning to you.
Just tell us about, first of all, your status. Do you have to change things?
For myself, no, because I lived there for 46 years. My family, my sons have been educated here. I have trained hundreds of British chefs. So effectively, what I will do is to just have a double nationality and keep my national French passport, of course, because I'm a Frenchman, but also take on the British nationality as well, which will make things simple. But for all my team, all my staff, I am relieved that effectively settled status and pre-settled status has been achieved. So much so that if you have been there as a European employee, if you have lived there for 5 years, you will be able to stay there, and that's very important. For the pre-settled status, people who have not been there, who have only been there for a couple of years or a year, they still can apply, and we will help them as a business, be it from Brasserie Blanc, Brasserie Barco. We employ 1,200 people, 600 are European. Okay, so that's how important it is. Belmont as well will also apply for all its employees, including Le Manoir 4 Saisons, Pullman, their HQ, okay, and the new Callaghan, Belmont Callaghan, which is opening in London very soon.
Okay.
So that's really exciting because we can protect our people who really work for us, who really give the quality, the excellence delivered to all of our guests. So we'll be able to protect them and apply for them and support them. So it's a good thing. We hope it's going to work.
Right. Well, I'll come to hoping whether it work in a second. We heard people there talking about feeling insecure, about feeling scared, about feeling anxious about the future. Is that something that has been reflected amongst your members of staff?
Very much so. extraordinarily much so, because there are families there, they settled there, they settled in Great Britain, and for them that uncertainty as what kind of Brexit we're going to have is something which is extremely worrying, both for the employers, but even more so for the employees. And I think that those schemes of pre-settled status and settled status will help a long way to allow to take away this voice, hopefully.
The government says it's trying to reassure EU citizens in the UK that they are welcome and valued. Is this what it's doing, this new status?
Well, that is a more worrying point, because effectively we have less and less EU citizens who come and work in Great Britain for a number of reasons. The pound is down, that means they cannot send money to their families, they don't know if they're going to be welcomed, and they don't know what kind of Brexit we're going to have. So there's a huge uncertainties about these Brexit issues and whether people will come in or not. And at the moment, we have about 18,000 people last year who didn't turn up in Great Britain. The hospitality industry is a huge industry. We employ 2.9 people, and 500,000 are European, and often they hold the skills, the knowledge, and the culture of food, culture of people, and service. And if those people don't turn up, we are in trouble, because already our industry is under tremendous stress of lack of staff, which will of course reflect on the service, on the quality of welcome, etc., etc.
Okay.
So it's something we definitely need to see happening.
Raymond Blanc, a chef and restaurateur, thank you very much for your time on breakfast this morning. Thank you.
Very interesting. 17 minutes past 8. High time we caught up with Carol, who has
she's got the moon with her. Look at this.
Found her a moon. That's not yours, though, Carol. You, like us, you've not seen it today. Is that right?
No. That's right, too much cloud where I was. Good morning, everybody. This is a fabulous Weather Watchers picture sent in from Carmarthenshire. What a lovely picture of the moon. But for many of us, it's a frosty start to the day. It's cold. Temperatures have sunk down to -6. There's cloud across many areas as well, but some of that will thin and break, and we'll see some hazy sunshine today. Now you can see where we've got some patchy light rain across southern areas, some of this coming out of the cloud that is slowly sinking south with the weather front, and we've also got some more across the north of Scotland with some hill snow. Now this weather front here, a cold front, is going to bring heavier rain and hill snow with it as we go through today and also tonight. So first thing this morning, you can see the extent of the cloud. It has broken in parts, southwest England, southeast England, East Anglia, parts of northern England, parts of northeast Scotland as well. And as we go through the day, some of us will see more cloud, some of us will see less as it breaks. But our weather front will introduce all this rain and some hill snow across Scotland and Northern Ireland. Whereas for much of England and Wales, some hazy sunshine, but here and there, the cloud will be thick enough for the odd spot of drizzle. Temperature-wise, you won't be writing home about these temperatures. We're looking at roughly 4 to about 7, although in the southwest of England, there is a chance we could get up as high as 10. Now the temperature will drop at sunset quite quickly, and as this band of rain engages with the cold air readily, it will fall as rain, sleet and snow not just on higher ground. So by first thing tomorrow morning, here it is in the southeast, that mixture of rain, sleet and snow. The snow mostly on the hills, and behind it a lot of showers. Once again, most of the snow will be in the hills, but in the heavier showers we could see some of that getting down to lower levels, and we're likely to have ice on untreated surfaces. So tomorrow we say goodbye to the weather front producing the rain, sleet and snow. There'll be a lot of dry weather around tomorrow, bright conditions. Even our old friend the sun will put in an appearance here and there. But there will still be some showers around, and some of those will still be wintry in nature. So snow in the hills, in the heavier ones, some sleet, perhaps at lower levels. It's going to be a cold and frosty start on Wednesday, but a lot of dry weather, more sunshine on Wednesday. But once again, there will still be some snow showers in the forecast, just here and there. By no means will we all see them, and most of the snow will be on the hills. Temperature-wise, still quite low, 2 to about 5 or 6. But you can see a bit more cloud coming in from the west. Then on Thursday, after a cold start once again, more sunshine. A weather front trying to get in from the west will introduce some rain. We could see 1 or 2 wintry showers coming into East Anglia and the southeast. Danielle.
Oh, Carol, thank you very much. We'll see you in half an hour or so. Thank you.
Sean is talking about China reporting the slowest economic growth in decades. What's happening, Sean?
Yeah, very important, big knock-on effect for the UK as well. Morning, folks. New figures out this morning show China's economy actually grew at its slowest rate for nearly 30 years. That contributing to worries about the state of the world's economy. Still grew at what lots would think was a pretty bumper 6.6%, but the slowing nature of it is what the worry is. We've heard this month from Jaguar Land Rover in the UK saying that the slowdown in China was one of the reasons why it was shedding 4,500 jobs. So exporters from Britain to China watching that very closely. Elsewhere, energy, a survey's been done. Small energy suppliers have beaten the so-called Big Six in a customer satisfaction survey. That's been done by the Consumer Group, which elsewhere the charity Citizens Advice today show that some areas of the country were more likely to switch than others. Yorkshire and Humberside leading the way, so well done to everybody there who's actually bothering to switch. And retail, another week, things to keep an eye on. Mike Ashley and HMV perhaps. Sports Direct boss Mike Ashley in talks for a possible takeover of HMV. HMV went into administration last month, more than 2,000 jobs, 125 stores, all at risk. Mike Ashley actually owns 60% of Sports Direct. He recently bought House of Fraser and Evans Cycles as well. He's got big stakes in Debenhams and French Connection. So if there's anybody to keep an eye on in the coming days about what might happen next on the high street, it's probably Mike Ashley and Sports Direct.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks very much.
8:21. People accused of abusing their partners will be banned from cross-examining them in family courts in England and Wales from today.
The change is part of what the government is describing as a landmark package to tackle domestic abuse and is broadly welcomed by campaigners.
We're joined now in the studio by Rochelle. Thank you so much
Morning.
for coming
Good
on.
morning.
A victim of domestic abuse and a campaigner on this issue.
Yeah.
For your own experience, Rochelle, why is this such an important change?
This is historic. I think it's really quite an incredible thing that this bill's finally getting into Parliament now, but it's very, very much needed. We are in an epidemic of domestic abuse now. It is so rife and affecting so many people that we have to have this change, and it has to really come now.
And just talk to us a little bit about, if you would, your own kind of experience and how, because you had to be cross-examined, didn't
Yep.
you? How did that? How was that? How did that make you feel?
So over a period of 5 years, we were in family court,
Yeah.
and at each of those times there was procedures for cross-examination. And to run away from a perpetrator of abuse, then be put back in a room and be expected to answer sometimes the most ridiculous of questions, which was just abuse in itself, is a terrifying feeling. But it's also re-trauma. We've left the abuse, and now we're going to have to go through it all over again.
Would that have changed your experience and experience of many others, do you think, had these changes been in effect when you were going through that? How would that have sort of affected the way you'd approached the whole process?
Yeah, I think people going into the family process after this bill becomes law means that there is a little bit more comfort that they're not going to have that level of abuse in the family court. We need to see how it's going to take effect practically. But I know people that are going through the process at the moment that are going to be pleased that one day when they end up in family court that they're not going to have this cross-examination.
Oh, you've been helping with the consultation process
Yes.
as well, haven't you? What other things are important, do you think, that's come out of it?
There's a number of measures in there in the consultation. It crosses over into the criminal courts now. It's not just family court. There's some protection orders in there which are important. There's some things that are missing. And make no mistake, this bill isn't perfect, and it really is a time to say to the government that we can get this exactly right. Please don't let us down again. This is needed. But it's a start. And we have to take some positivity, because as a victim, if we've got no hope, where are we going to go to next then?
It's great that you're using, what was obviously a really horrible experience for you to try and help others involved in the consultation process.
Yeah.
I know you also speak to quite a few young people about sort of domestic abuse. When you speak to them, what sort of issues are coming up time and time again from your feedback from those conversations?
Well, I'm seeing firsthand that we've got youngsters in relationships 15, 16, 17 years old where these abusive behaviours are in place already. And that's incredibly alarming for me. I was 25 when I started to go through this process. And I thought that was young and difficult enough. But the reality is it's affecting younger and younger people, and a whole new generation are coming forwards. And that, for me, is not a place we want our society to be in. So preventative work, for me, is really important. Let's stop the victims being victims in the first place, but also the perpetrators. The life that they're in for is not one we want to be. putting young people through either. So if we can stop a perpetrator becoming that in the first place, then that's got to be
And another thing is knowing, you know, when you're very young, what is sort of abusive behaviour as well. Do you find that that is one of the issues?
Nobody's telling them.
Right.
Nobody's having these conversations with our young people. The schools are not having them. I guess parents are not having them. And I've got a son myself that was born through the abusive relationship. I've got a niece. And it worries me terribly that people are just not having these dialogues. Perhaps people think we don't need to have them, but we do.
In terms of what you're talking about there, about some of those abusers as well, are they, from your experience, is that a learned behaviour? Is that something that they've seen from others? Or is that just maybe I don't know, some sort of horrible cultural place we're in at the moment?
I think it's a mixture. We will always have people in society that are going to inflict these kinds of crimes on people. It's historic. We know people do that. But I also think there's very much a learned behaviour come from. There's a number of reasons that could be happening. But also we can change people's behaviour if we capture it early enough. And we see with very, very youngsters that bullying is a problem in schools. And I wonder whether some of it comes from that we just aren't teaching people to have respect for each other.
Just really quickly, if there are people who are in a similar situation to the one that you've described, what's the first thing to do?
Have some courage. Whatever little bit of courage that is left in you, you can find it and you can live a life that is much better than the one you're living now. That's all I can say, really.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. It's good to see you, Rochelle. Thank you.
Thank you, Rochelle. There's still plenty to come on the programme for you. Got some great guests coming up. But right now, the news, travel and the weather, wherever you're watching, we'll see you with the headlines in just a few minutes' time.
Up next on the BBC News Channel, a look at what's happening in the world of global business with Business Live. And in half an hour, it's the news at 9 with all the latest stories.
Hi there, good morning. If you were up early enough this morning and you had some clear skies, you may have been lucky enough to see the Super Bloods Wolf Moon. And our weather watchers sent us loads of photographs of the moon. It looked absolutely glorious this morning with those clear skies, but it's been cold and it's been frosty, particularly in the southeast. Further north and west today, we've got this weather front moving its way in. That's introducing more cloud and some outbreaks of rain into Northern Ireland and into the west of Scotland. Now, increasingly, that rain will turn to snow, mainly over the higher ground, but maybe some low levels may get some sleet and some wet snow later this afternoon and into this evening. Elsewhere, a lot of cloud. The best of any sunshine will be down towards the southeast of England, and it's going to feel pretty cold today. Maximum temperatures typically about 4 to 7 degrees. Tonight, though, that band of rain will move its way south and east, but again, there'll be some hill snow, even down to some relatively lower levels over the hills of the Pennines through North Wales. Cold and frosty for many of us through tonight. Not quite as cold down towards the southeast as just the cloud increases here with that rain pushing its way in. So temperatures 1 to 3 degrees. Elsewhere, temperatures hovering at about freezing. Now, going through Tuesday, we've got that band of rain, which will move away to the southeast, and then all of us under the influence of this northwesterly wind, and that's bringing in a mixture of sunny spells and showers, but a lot of those showers will be wintry. So again, over the higher ground, there'll be some snow, but even down to some lower levels in northwest England and across Wales, there could be some snow for a time. Some showers down towards even the southeast of England, but there'll be some sunshine in between those showers. And again, it's going to feel quite cold with maximum temperatures about 4 to 7 Celsius. For the rest of the week, it stays cold with temperatures around that area. Wintry showers, some sunshine, some sharp frost overnight, but it'll turn less cold as we go into Friday. That's all from me. Bye-bye.